I've been hearing about Trump doing whatever he wanted on all things all the time, that I kind of sort of forgot that Congress even mattered in the US still. I lost I lost myself and kind of forgot that Congress even matters still for anything. It's just, I was under the impression almost that everybody just started saying, I don't know, I was under the impression that everybody says, hey, Trump cannot do this. He needs the approval of Congress. Trump cannot do that. He needs the approval of Congress. And then he just do it anyway, so it wouldn't matter. It turns out that's not the case. It turns out that Congress actually does something and, I don't know, means something, because it seems like the United States, oh my gosh, what a slip. I said United States and I meant to say Trump. It seems like Trump kind of really wanted to withdraw American troops from Europe because Trump is really anti-European right now, because Europe really stands in the way of peace talks, quote unquote, between the US and Russia, because of course it's not peace talks between Ukraine and Russia, it's actually peace talks between the US and Russia. And Europe has been really positioned as an opponent, as a rival to the US. I think we're going to talk about this more in depth in a separate segment, about the fact that the United States really seems to want to break up the European Union into separate nation states that have completely nothing to do with one another. Divide and conquer, the very classic strategy. After all, the individual European states are dwarfs compared to the United States and even Russia. While united, the European Union is a formidable force with a pretty big GDP that dwarfs Russia's, by the way, by, I think, 10 times. I think the European Union GDP is 10 times bigger than Russia's. And also, just, there's so many factors while Trump is being so antagonistic towards the European Union. And of course, Elon Musk, after the European Union has fined his X/Twitter platform for a lack of transparency when it comes to data handling, when it comes to advertisement, and when it comes to the whole blue checkmark thing, which created a backlash of Elon Musk/X fanboys screaming that Europe is censoring free speech. I don't even want to go to there now, but point is, Trump wanted to, as part of that whole bigger campaign, withdraw troops from Europe. And it seems that Congress, which again I started to believe does nothing, blocked it. It seems like Congress blocked that plan, and I guess we're gonna have to see what Trump does next. Maybe Trump will fire. Maybe Trump will fire Congress by saying, you're fired, Congress. Trump will dissolve the Congress like Palpatine dissolved the parliament or something. US Congress is preparing major amendments to the national security strategy introduced under Donald Trump. Oh, Donald Trump just introduced his very, very aggressive national security strategy, and the US Congress said, you're crazy, you're insane, and you will amend it because this is just stupid. This is not gonna stay the way that it is, okay? Europe is not our enemy. Europe is our ally. At least, okay, I'm just saying things now. I'm hoping that that is what the Congress said, or at least I'm hoping that is what the Congress is thinking. Changes aimed at blocking any future withdrawal of US troops from Europe and strengthening America's commitments to NATO. Oh. So basically, in the actual document that is out now, the Trump's cabinet weakened the US NATO commitments actually by a pretty significant margin. I think it said that if Europe does not meet certain criteria, then the United States would limit its involvement in NATO, stuff like that. And I guess the Congress of the United States does not like that. Strengthening America's commitment to NATO. There's a video that we can watch here. What would these amendments mean for Europe's security and Washington's long-term role on the continent? Could they prevent sudden shifts in US foreign policy and reinforce deterrence against Russia? Let me see.
Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching News in Depth. The US Congress aims to introduce significant amendments to the national security strategy presented by Donald Trump's administration. Now, what does it mean for Europe's security? And to discuss it, we're joined by TVP World's Europe editor, Marcin Zaborowski. Good afternoon, Marcin.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Hello.
So, what do these amendments approved by Congress, amendments to the national security strategy, what do they actually mean for Europe? Because there's been, I would call it even a panic over the last few days.
Well,
everybody's been talking about this document. I mean, it's a pretty big document. It's a pretty important document, considering that it marks a huge change in American strategy abroad. It marks the departure from rules-based order, global rules-based order, and the movement towards a power-based order. And if you know what I mean by a power-based order, I mean dividing the world into spheres of influence where the big players get their backyards and they basically rule over it. So America would get South America, Russia would get Europe, and China would get something unclear. But they all would get something. In this world model, big powers are considered actual real players on the world stage, and all the other countries are just considered small fries to be played. And dismantling the European Union is actually a big part of that. Because, again, if Russia can handle easy each individual European nation state, but combined Europe is a completely different story altogether. Estelle says, I called it a manifesto. I went over a big chunk of it as well. I went over a big chunk of this document as well. I read it, of course. It's insane. There's a lot of aspects that we could be talking about when it comes to this document, but the most important thing is the moving away from rules-based order to a power, sphere of influence, world order, and the departure away from Europe, berating Europe, treating it as a competitor rather than an ally. It's a lot, and seems like the US Congress does not like these changes.
So these are two very different documents. So on one hand, we have a national security strategy, which is documented really in public diplomacy, one might say, for public consumption and without an immediate policy effect, published by the White House. And on the other hand, what we have in the Congress is the National Defense Authorization Act, which is basically a very detailed document, which is devising facts and figures, and which is attributing figures to a particular expense. So the issue is that there is a bit of a discrepancy between the two.
I see. Now, is it obligatory for Donald Trump to sign the document prepared by US Congress?
No. If anything, it's the other way around. So if Donald Trump...
Wait, hold on. Can you actually find and read this other document anywhere? Because the guy just said that the one that we read was for public consumption. But can you actually find and read the other one? That would be interesting.
Wants to spend some money. If anything, it's via
by US Congress.
Hold on.
To sign.
There is a bit of a expense and figures. the document
Hold on.
Act, which is basically is the National Defense Authorization Act.
National Defense Authorization Act. National Defense Act. Oh, you can actually read it. All actions. Read. Can you read it? You can, actually. You can read it. Oh, this is such a big document. Okay, technically speaking, you can. This is such a big document, though. This is big. Okay, let's just listen to what we've been listening. It would take too long to read that whole document.
Which is basically a very detailed document, which is, devising facts and figures, and which is attributing figures to a particular expense. So the issue is that there is a bit of a discrepancy between the two.
I see. Now, is it obligatory for Donald Trump to sign the document prepared by? I see. Now, is it obligatory for Donald Trump to sign the document prepared by U.S. Congress?
No. It's, if anything, it's the other way around. So if Donald Trump wants to spend some money, he must have a defense, he must have a Congress's approval for that. So what it is that he published a document in which a lot of people in Europe saw it as a beginning of divorce with Europe. Really, like Donald Trump said.
Yeah, I saw it like that as well. I saw it more than just a divorce with Europe. I treat it as a divorce with Europe, with leaving Europe ruined.
That Europeans have to take care of themselves, that their values are divergent, that but there are civilizational differences.
Precisely, because
no, not civilization differences. The document said that Europe was in a civilizational decline, that Europe was in a civilizational free fall or something stupid like that.
National security strategy, which is documented really in public diplomacy, one might say, for public consumption and without an immediate policy effect, published by the White House. And on the other hand, what we have in the Congress is the National Defense Authorization Act.
It's buffering.
Which is basically a very detailed document, which is devising facts and figures, and which is attributing figures to a particular expense. So the issue is that there is a bit of a discrepancy between the two.
Why did the video rewind?
See, now, is it obligatory?
Jesus Christ, I'm Groundhog Day.
Donald Trump to sign the document prepared by U.S. Congress?
Yes, there is.
No.
You can read this online. I just found it. It's a very detailed document, though, so I'm not sure if we're gonna read it. But yes, there is actually a version. I just looked it up while we were watching. Look at this. FY25 National Defense Authorization Act Resources. View full text of the Service Member Quality of Life Improvement Act of National Defense Authorization Act on fiscal year 2025. Full summary: improving service member quality of life, restoring the focus of military on lethality, military recruiting, deterring China, oversight and accountability, DoD budget and savings, military and industrial base readiness, innovation, acquisition reform, defending Israel, countering other adversaries. Oh, okay. Maybe let's take a quick look at countering other adversaries. Iran, Afghanistan, and the Taliban. This is much more detailed than the Trump one. Foreign terrorists, North Korea, Russia. Continuous support for the Baltic Security Initiative to strengthen the defensive capability and interoperability of the Baltic states. prohibits the Biden administration from sharing information on our strategic nuclear forces with Russia unless the Biden administration, isn't this for 2025, requires DoD to eliminate dependence on Russian energy. It says that it's from 2025, but it talks about the Biden administration, so maybe it's not the current one. Even that document calls it the DoD still. Maybe it's not up to date, but it clearly says 2025, you know? I'm confused. Whatever. I'll have to look into it later. It's the first time I'm playing the video about it, this particular bit of the video I feel like.
It's, if anything, it's the other way around. So if Donald Trump wants to spend some money, he must have a defense, he must have a Congress's approval for that. So what it is that he published a document in which a lot of people in Europe saw it as a, well, beginning of divorce with Europe, really. Like Donald Trump saying that, that Europeans have to take care of themselves, that their values are divergent, that, you know, that there are civilizational differences.
Precisely, because there was a strong justification for the reduction of U.S. troops in Europe and so on, right? Because of migration.
And well, one of the points that he also made there is that, you know, the U.S. should be supporting parties which are, he didn't say it explicitly, but one could read the parties which are Eurosceptic, parties which want to return Europe to its natural roots, so to speak. So, and then we have a U.S. Congress approving the fact, approving the bill for the appropriation of funds for defense, in which the Congress is actually allocating more money than the administration has asked for the U.S. presence in Europe. So that's kind of unheard of, that you as a president, you are asking for a certain amount of money and usually the Congress gives you less. This time is the other way around. So he asked for some allocations, for some appropriations, and the Congress is giving him more and is saying this money needs to go towards the defense of Europe. And also is saying that if the administration thinks about like withdrawing, pulling out some...
Now, this is very interesting that the US admin is basically saying we need to withdraw from Europe, and the Congress is saying, no, you actually need to super stay in Europe and you need to defend Europe, and we're giving you a lot of money for it. Thank you, Vladimir.
Troops from Europe, we would put brakes on it. So Congress would need to be notified. The number of troops in Europe should not go below a certain level, which is not that different from current level. The money towards the Baltic Defense Initiative to contribute to the military aid in the Baltic states is ramped up. So there will be more money going towards the Baltics than the administration didn't ask for any, really.
That is very interesting, actually, when it comes to the discussion about the document that Trump put out. And okay, that is actually very fascinating. The National Defense Authorization Act.
Administration wanted to stop funding of the U.S. presence in the Baltic states, and the Congress is saying, no, we have to stay there, and this is the money for this.
I see. Now, how many U.S. troops are there nowadays in Europe? Because according to...
Don't you think this is fascinating? I feel like this is very interesting. What do you think? The Congress is clearly at odds with Donald Trump when it comes to the topics of national security.
2024 data, it was around 100,000, while this congressional document speaks of 76,000.
Yeah, currently it's around 84,000 because a lot of troops have already left. They were, for example, troops which were in Poland overseeing the hub in Rzeszów have been replaced by European troops. There was a decision already taken by the Biden administration, by the way. So there has been a lot of rotation, I mean, related to the delivery of military aid to Ukraine. So currently we have between 80 to 84,000. So actually, making a special provision for a situation in which the troops would fall below 76,000, that means that they should stay as they are in many respects.
Why do you think this threshold has been established at 76,000? Because I guess that's the bare minimum for the US troops to be a true repellent for, well, most probably for Russia, right?
I think that, I'm not really an expert in logistics and this kind of thing, but I think this is probably very close to an absolute number of US troops which are committed to Europe at this point in time.
Oh, I see.
What goes on the top of that is, the maintenance personnel, the administration, all this kind of thing, yeah? But I think what we have currently in Europe, like pure defense force, it's around those numbers, yeah? Or it's not very far off.
Right. Now, Marcin, you said that Donald Trump is looking to promote the governments that are quite Eurosceptical. Now, I'm wondering whether his ambition is not to dismantle the EU as a whole. We have a...
Yes, it is. Yes, my answer to that question is yes, it absolutely is. It's just, I think it's pretty blatantly evident that Trump wishes to dismantle the European Union. I don't think it's even a question.
Quote from the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz. Let's give it a listen.
In my discussions with the Americans, I say, America first is fine, but America alone cannot be in your interest. You also need partners in the world, and one of those partners can be Europe. And if you can't get along with Europe, then at least make Germany your partner.
Interesting. That is a very interesting phrasing.
If you can't get along with Europe, then at least make Germany your partner. Now, this is a new narrative, right? It used to be we, the Europeans. Now it's we, the Germans.
Well, personally, I didn't read much into that. I think that, that Merz is saying, work with Europe. If that's something which is too difficult for you, at least work with us and work with the others, work with individual states, yeah?
Which is not a good thing, by the way, because if you work with individual states, that already fragments the whole thing. It means that you can basically pit the individual states against one another. You can do preferential deals to certain states while treating. It's not a good idea. It is not a good idea for the individual states to deal with the US on their own, in my opinion. I think the European Union should deal with Trump as a bloc, not as individual nation states. That is my personal opinion on the matter. Because together as a bloc, the European Union has much more bargaining power than the individual countries do.
And so I think that it's what Merz is trying to say. Really, America needs partners, and it's clear when you look into the trade figures, when you look into the economic figures. I think that Trump's administration is underestimating European economic might. Because still Europe is, as such, the European Union is America's biggest investor and economic partner by far.
I see. Now, talking about NATO, true.
Yeah, but Trump is also seeing Europe as a competitor to power, as a competitor to trade influence, and would rather deal individually with nation states that are much, much weaker.
In Europe.
And have much less bargaining power by extension.
Why is it so important for the American congressman to have the NATO military supreme commander in Europe to be this position still held by the American, well, any American general?
So this is one of the provisions of the congressmen and congresswomen amends into that bill, which has been just approved. One of these amendments says that the position of the Supreme Allied Commander must remain in American hands. This is how it has always been, since the very foundation of the alliance. By the way, the first Allied Supreme Commander was Eisenhower, who went on to become the US president for two terms. So it's a powerful position, and many would say that actually is far more important in NATO than a Secretary General. Secretary General is a political position. It's usually held by a European. I think it's probably always held by a European.
Yes.
But the real thing that NATO is about is really about military contribution, right? And that the fact that it's the American which holds this position basically commits the US to the defense of Europe. And recently, the administration...
Precisely because that would facilitate the Americans to wash their hands, right? If they were able to say that this is not our army anymore, right? That someone else is commanding it, not us.
Totally. And so recently, the Trump administration started to
Why is it why? Oh my gosh, why is it buffering again?
say that actually we don't really need this position. We don't mind if it goes to the Europeans. And you can imagine the situation in which, for example, you have a German general, for that matter, yeah? And then Supreme Commands take a decision on the operation in the Balkans, for example. And it doesn't take a decision because it's political, but it's charged with the execution of that. And then Donald Trump says, we're not going to be told by the German general where to go and how to do our things. Our army only responds to me.
I see. Now, talking about allies, we have a quote from the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, saying that
You mean the Secretary of War? Okay, it's not the Secretary of Defense anymore. It's now the Secretary of War. War.
allies that step up, like Israel, South Korea, Poland, increasingly Germany.
Oh yeah, Poland has been praised. I forgot. I almost forgot that Hegseth has praised Poland as one of the good ones. As the good one, the good ally that deserves a pat on the head.
The Baltics and others will receive our special favor. What is Pete Hegseth talking about? Special favor.
Special favor.
Well,
Jesus Christ.
Also, the National Security Strategy, the document that we started our discussion from.
Our special favor, special little boy. You're gonna receive special pats on the head.
Highlights the role of the so-called New Europeans. So the states in Central and Eastern Europe, which are more Atlantically minded, which spend more on defense. So it's a known U.S. tactic which dates back to George W. Bush days, when Europe was being fully divided by the then Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld into old Europe. So it's always chocolate lovers, the Germans, the Belgians, the French, yeah, and
reminds me of Zionism.
He spoke in derogatory terms because they oppose U.S. intervention in Iraq, and then about
Reminds me of Zionism a lot.
Poland and other countries in this part of Europe who went along with the U.S. administration, supported it in Iraq, and basically did whatever Americans told them to do. We received the title of New Europe. And we were patted on the back, and then we sent more troops with the questionable benefits for ourselves.
So it's nothing new in general.
It's nothing new. It's nothing. It's divide and rule. Is what it is.
Now, the National Defense Authorization Act, the one prepared by U.S. Congress, envisages providing Ukraine with $400 million next year and $400 million in 2027. Now, given the fact that Donald Trump has repeatedly stated that he will not pay a single dollar to support Ukraine now that it's all in Europe's hands, right? Do you think that this can be still a bone of contention between his administration and lawmakers?
Well, yes. I mean, it's extraordinary. It's really extraordinary. It's again is one of those elements when the U.S. administration, Donald Trump is saying, I'm done with Ukraine, and if they want my help, they need to pay for it. And by the way, I agree more with Vladimir Putin. And then suddenly Congress saying, actually, some...
I find it so fascinating that the Congress is like, no.
sizable payment must continue to support Ukrainian defense effort. So Congress is defying the president here. And it's on both sides of the coin.
I love it. I love that the Congress is just countering Trump's insanity. I have to say, I love that a lot.
Congress. It's not just the Democrats, because Congress, let's remind our viewers, is controlled by the Republicans. So it's the conservative Republicans who are not in agreement with the president on the issue as fundamental.
You know what? Now I love it even more. The fact that it's the Republicans that are saying, no, this is stupid. Now that's, I love it.
As support for Ukraine, which they want to continue.
Right, Marcin. Now, only a few days ago, many commentators had this impression that Donald Trump is in fact abandoning Europe, that the US wants to absolutely withdraw from Europe, and that pretty soon...
I guess US Congress will not have a...
what awaits Europe is a potential conflict, military conflict with Russia. So what do we know? So what do we know now, after having learned of the National Defense Authorization Act?
Well, as I said at the beginning, very different documents. Donald Trump's document is saying, I want to get along with Russia. Russia can be my potential partner. And I like the world of big powers with whom I can do deals. Yeah, those in between big powers, we don't care. Yeah, that's kind of, it's not explicitly, but implicitly it seems to be there. Whereas the National Defense Authorization Act, which is far more important in my view, because it's about concrete money, to concrete operations, concrete troops presence and so on, is maintaining the role of the United States in Europe and beyond Europe to the point that we have always known. It's the United States which is engaged, it's the United States which is internationalist, it's the United States which is faithful to its alliances.
It kind of sounds to me like what is being said here is, okay, Trump have his little fantasy document, and this is an actual document that holds any weight, you know? It kind of weirdly sounds to me like that. Okay, this is the document that actually has any importance to it, and Trump can have his little thing.
And who is helping its allies in various parts of the world.
But do you really feel that NATO is as strong as it used to be only a year ago?
That NATO is
as strong as it was?
Well, look, I mean, in many respects, it's stronger.
I mean, given the political tensions between Europe and the US.
I mean, that's the paradox of Donald Trump. So, on one hand, Donald Trump is talking down NATO, and Donald Trump is questioning NATO's continuing utility. At the same time, he's telling the Europeans, if you don't take care of yourself, then we walk, which results in what? In Europeans massively ramping up their defense spending and changing their defense posture, and actually leading to the emergence of a force which has not been never as strong since the end of the Cold War. Even look at this country, on Poland. We now currently spend almost 5% of GDP on defense. We are on shopping spree. We're buying even submarines now. Not to mention...
I still got a little bit annoyed by all this. The shopping spree. Ukraine should be given more arms, okay? The more stuff Ukraine receives right now, the better position it will have in negotiations. This is the moment where Europe should step up and send as much help to Ukraine as possible. I know that I keep bringing it all back to Ukraine all the time, but let us not forget that there's still a pretty big war. In fact, the biggest since World War II in Europe happening right now, still, as we speak.
Aircrafts, the armed vehicles, tanks, and all over, and many other equipment. The others are not doing that to the same extent as Poland, but everybody is increasing their defense spending. So actually, Donald Trump talk helped to revitalize what's important about NATO, which is its actual military might.
There we have it, buffering. Okay, can you buffer, please? Get a better laptop at some point. That is very fascinating, though. I will take the moment to say that is quite the development. Oh, what the hell?
Revitalize what's important about NATO, which is its actual military might.
Sure, now Europe can spend more because it clearly has more money than Ukraine, right, which is very much cornered. Now, I'm wondering how is the publication of the National Defense Authorization Act affecting the diplomatic talks over.
There you go. This is a very interesting aspect. I really know how much the Congress view of Ukraine differs from Donald Trump's view on Ukraine, because that is, to me right now, the most important thing. So let us. Okay.
War in Ukraine.
The Ukrainian press is surprised and happy with the fact that some money was allocated. It's probably not an amount of money which is actually making a huge strategic difference to the battlefield, but they were told there will be no money, that there will be it. And here you have a Congress which, as I said, maintains the same line that the former administrations did.
I will say that it is interesting that Trump says we're financially not in Ukraine anymore, and the Congress allocated money for Ukraine.
With respect to the US presence in Europe and continuing support for Ukraine. So 400 million US dollars over.
400 million US dollars is nothing. So you might you know what, it might as well be nothing, considering how much money is actually needed. The $400 million is nothing.
The period of 2 years is 800 million. It's
nothing. It's a paltry sum. It's a worthless amount.
It's not negligible amount of money, but
it is. No, when it comes to armed conflict, I will say that it is actually a negligible amount of money. It is actually quite the negligible amount of money.
At the same time, it's also not a huge amount of money that should make a material difference now and then, but symbolically, it's very, very important.
Okay, it might be important symbolically, but I'm sorry to say, I don't mean to sound like a person that's complaining, but Ukraine needs a lot more than just symbolism right now. Ukraine needs a lot more very decisive action rather than symbolism. Well, it's a political advisor type of guy, so he cannot say that. He cannot brag about NATO's big balls, unfortunately.
And hopefully, not only symbolically, maybe it will translate into something bigger.
Maybe.
TVP World's editor Marcin Zaborowski was our guest today. Thank you very much, Marcin, and thank you for.
All right, that was it. I found this little segment that we had very interesting. I think this gives me hope that maybe we are not all screwed, and that maybe things are better than I thought. Maybe we are not all doomed.